Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are doing another Q&A. I'm actually recording in the same day as the previous Q&A, so my voice at the moment is still a little bit shaky. If it sounds a little bit more zen than usual and I'm more nasal than usual, it's because I've been a little sick and I'm doing my best. Don't worry, it's gonna get better in time, so please excuse my voice. But with that said, welcome to another Q&A episode, the series in which I answer as many of the questions that you guys left in the comment section of my videos. So without further ado, let's get to the sponsor. Today's video, together with this entire series, is of course sponsored by rePotme.com, who offers you everything you could possibly need to properly take care of your orchids, from potting mixes to pots, fertilizers, accessories, grow lights, and everything in between. And not only for orchids, but also for other houseplants as well. Side note, I'm actually currently using one of their grow lights on an anthurium and it's growing great. But yeah, definitely you can use these supplies for other houseplants as well. So I will link you to their website down below in the description and the pinned comment. Feel free to check them out at any time. And with that said, let us get to the questions. I have a whole bunch more questions to get to today. Hopefully, we're gonna get to as many as possible. Right, so first question, it's actually a set of two questions from Therese. How do I change the media if my roots are growing through the slits and holes of the pot? And do I have to break those plastic pots? Well, it's really up to you. I personally choose not to completely break and destroy the plastic pots because I can definitely reuse them for years and years. I honestly, you guys, have pots that are as old as my first year on YouTube, 12 years ago, because they lasted. And I do also have orchids that are as old as 2013. And again, they lasted. The only difference is one of these two individuals grows or regrows. The other doesn't. So my preference is to cut the roots if I cannot get them out safely, or if I would have to cut the pot. I will cut the roots because the roots regrow. And especially with an orchid that has a lot of roots, she's not even gonna feel it. Rather than cutting the pot and throwing away a plastic, that could have been used for years and years and years. Hence why I really didn't have to buy plastic pots in years. And it's not that rePotme sent me pots or anything. They sent me, those pots with slits 6-7 years ago, and pretty much that's it. I did not buy any more pots because I continuously reuse them, or I'm using, the opaque ones, and again, I can reuse them. So that's my personal preference. If I have an orchid that is severely sick or I have to save all of the roots, I will cut the pot, but typically I don't. That's a preference. You can cut the pot if you feel like, or just cut those roots. Roots regrow. If you have a healthy orchid, there's really no problem. Next question from Karen. It's a longer comment, so I'll give you the resume. So my viewer is from Belgium and they're asking me about my orchid fertilizer. I'm using the MSU fertilizer. A whole history with that. Sometimes, I need to destroy it at the border police. Sometimes it comes through. I don't know. I understand it's an issue and you cannot order the MSU if you are in the European Union. And what other fertilizer do I recommend? I actually had pretty good success with the fertilizer that Orchids Deluxe has. I don't know what brand it is because they just sell it in bags open. It could be Osmocote, I don't know, but they have a very good fertilizer that I got along with pretty okay. And also, I don't have it here, the Osmocote Pro High K. Again, Orchids Deluxe sell it. Not that I'm affiliated with Orchids Deluxe, but that's just where I found something when I ran out of my MSU, and I used it for a year or two and it was okay. So yeah, the slow release fertilizer will help a lot. It doesn't have calcium though, so don't use rainwater with it, use tap water. Or if you want to combine with the powder fertilizer, that one I think has calcium. I'm not sure. Oh, the leaves are turning a little bit pale. Right, yeah, they could do that because of lack of fertilizer. But anyway, honestly, if you really don't have a choice, you can use any fertilizer that has as many nutrients as possible. If you have access to Osmocote, even slow release, it's better than nothing. Osmocote is actually a very good fertilizer. And look on Orchids Deluxe. It might actually be very easy for you to purchase from Orchids Deluxe because I think it's near. So, and also the transport might be very cheap for you because it's near. So check that out. And that one I used, so I can recommend. Others, I don't know, but anything that you have available that has as many nutrients as possible, use. Maybe stay away from fertilizers that have urea. Maybe try something that has more, either a combination of ammonia and nitrate, but not so much urea. Right. My partner recently bought me a Phalaenopsis Sweet Memory Liodoro. I'm wondering if you still have yours and any tips with growing it. I actually don't have mine because it's a magnet for pests. It likes, the pests actually, I think, like that. I think it's very crunchy. The leaves are glossy and kind of crunchy and not so tough. They're more tender. I guess I meant tender, not crunchy, but anyway. It always gets pests and I'm always like, have to treat it for mites and stuff, and I crown rotted my last one and I just didn't repurchase it because I just didn't want to hassle with it anymore pretty much. Tips? It is a novelty Phalaenopsis, but I find that it actually benefits from a little bit of a cool down. For me, it always blooms in the springtime. It doesn't produce a cascade of flowers, but it produces quite enough. I think I kept the flower spikes on, but I realized that it doesn't really rebloom all that great from the older flower spikes. So in the end, I just cut them because it produces new flower spikes each year. I treat it just like a flower shop Phalaenopsis pretty much, and everything was okay. But yeah, it was a little bit of a pest magnet, I find. Anybody else? I don't know. Yeah, so I decided not to hassle with it anymore because I have other fragrant Phalaenopsis. Next question from Megan. Hi Danny, thank you so much for doing these videos. I love your Q&As. Thank you. I really enjoy the fact that you love the Q&As. I do have a question for your ongoing list. I have a Phalaenopsis Orchid that has a curved stem due to my inept attempts at repotting over the years. The bottom portion appears dead. Is it possible to cut the bottom without harming the orchid? If so, where should I make the incision? What signs should I look for to make sure it's dead all the way through? Thanks. All right. Yeah, this is a Phalaenopsis with a long stem. If I have a video to share with you, I will put it down below. I honestly don't think I have too many videos on long stem Phalaenopsis. It is true that after many years, the stem at the bottom will be bare and will die. And it's not your inept attempts at repotting. Don't worry, you repot it just fine. It just happens. As they grow, the stem dries. So it must be a pretty old orchid. Yes, you can actually cut the stem. It's a little bit tricky to figure out where it's completely dry and where it's not. But even if you cut in good stem, it's still okay. Basically, what you want to have is the bulk of the roots still attached to the orchid. So if you have a portion of stem that has dead roots, you can absolutely remove that portion of the stem. And to make sure that it's dead, just remove those little sheaths, those little leaf remains. A stem that is not alive anymore, it's typically thinner. It kind of just, it dries and it becomes thinner. So if it's thin, it's typically dry and dead and you can cut it. When it starts to become thicker all of a sudden, typically that's the portion where it's alive. Just cut from the bottom. If you see it's dead, cut a little further up and so on. Work your way up pretty much if you're not sure exactly where to cut, and you should be okay. Keep the bulk of the roots on the upper portion or the portion you save for the orchid and it should be okay. Even if you manage to cut into good stem, it's still okay. My preferred way to actually seal that stem is by using hot glue. It works a treat. I think I have a video on it. If you have wax or a candle, you can dip the tip of the stem in wax and that's perfectly fine. If you don't have a candle, you can use hot glue. It works a treat. Cinnamon doesn't because it will get washed away, but don't worry about it. You can absolutely cut the stem. And I'll try to provide a link to something that I hope will help. I need to look in my video archive. Righty. Next question from Kat. Hi Danny, love your videos. I have a question about Phalaenopsis flower spikes. I usually cut them each year after the initial bloom is over and try to grow a new one next year. There seem to be more hybrids on the market that cross summer and winter bloomers. A lot of polychilous questions, right? These days, and I'm afraid to make a mistake cutting the spike. Do you have any tips for how to tell if a hybrid takes more after its summer blooming parent and the flower spike should not be cut? Okay, there is no 100% way of telling, but I can give you some pointers. Look for very glossy leaves. That is a very typical feature of the polychilous subgenus. Also, if your orchid produces flower spikes that are not very full of blooms, that's another feature. Usually these species don't produce a whole lot of blooms, but they produce very quality blooms. Also look for blooms that are very thick, very waxy. They're not, the fluffy, nice moth shape. They're more of a star shape and a little bit more glossy. That's another indication that you might be dealing with more of a polychilous type. These are the features I would look for. There is no 100% way of knowing exactly what behavior it will have. You just have to trial and error. If you want this year not to cut the flower spikes, don't cut them and see what happens to them next year. If the orchid will still grow from them, or if it will decide to just give them up altogether, or if they bloom, are they good blooms or just one or two blooms? Because maybe if it's not enough for it to matter, it would be better to just remove them and give more energy to the orchid, right? Just do a trial and error, nothing to lose. It's fun to experiment with orchids. Next question from Dukel. Hi Danny, I have a translucent spot disease on my Phalaenopsis orchids. Can you prevent it by using a calcium and magnesium fertilizer? No, the disease destroyed half of my collection. Oh no. It happened after watering, that's your problem, and when it was very hot and humid in my area and it spread to other orchids. I used cinnamon and hydrogen peroxide 3% to treat it, but the spots just reappeared after every watering. Please help me. Okay, so the spots are nothing to do with deficiencies or minerals or things of the sorts. Most likely, okay, most likely. I think you're dealing with a bacterial infection or fungal infection. They kind of look similar. I believe bacterial infection. The best way to spread bacteria and to make sure it multiplies is by providing water and humidity. So when you water your orchids, because you already have a very humid environment, try not to put water on the leaves, try not to splash, because those bacteria or spores, maybe it's a multitude of infections there, they will spread to other orchids. So I'm not sure if you're growing your orchids outside. If you're not growing them outside, put a fan to move the air in your growing area. That can help. Make sure you open the windows so you refresh the air inside. You don't let the pathogens accumulate in your growing area. If you're growing your orchids outside, you don't need the fan, but just make sure that you don't splash water too much. Make sure that you water just the pot of the orchid, and also that you don't reuse the water. As for treating the orchids you already have infected, I think this is a case of a systemic fungicide. I personally cannot recommend you one because I don't use them. I actually was fortunate enough not to have to use them. And I just, treat everything with hydrogen peroxide and everything. But I think in your case, it's already too much or too advanced for these, household things. There is a limitation to household solutions as well, and you might want to consider a systemic fungicide. Read the label, take the precautions necessary, but at this point prevention is the key. Try to prevent them, and if you need to treat something, treat with something systemic, and maybe locally from your flower shops you can find better advice that I can give you at this point. Good luck. I hope it works out. I know it must be heartbreaking. I hope you manage to fix it. And I'm very sorry to hear that you're dealing with this issue. Righty. Next comment from Cornelia. Hi Danny, thank you for sharing your knowledge. I have a question about root cutting. When repotting, where exactly do you cut the roots? Do you cut the alive part of the root to really get rid of the damaged stuff, or do you cut at the point where the healthy root is not touched at all? Thank you and greetings from Austria. Greetings from Cyprus. So that is a great question that I feel like I didn't talk about too much. I usually cut, and I would advise anybody to cut in the dry portion. Don't cut into good tissue. There is a reason for that. When you cut into good and alive tissue, you always open the gate for some pathogens and bacteria to enter. It's not very common. It doesn't happen very common, but you only need it to happen once to lose an orchid pretty much. And I believe it's more risky to cut into roots than to cut into leaves. Live roots, I mean, because you are potting those roots, they sit in moisture. And as I was saying, the perfect breeding ground for pathogens is moisture. So they will be in contact with water longer than leaves. So I always leave a little bit of dry tissue or dead tissue there just to maintain that seal, because it's not gonna spoil the medium just a little bit, and it keeps the door closed for pathogens. So remember, with roots, we need to cut into the dead or dry portion, not into the live portion. If you cut into the live portion and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to unpot it, what did I do? Don't worry about it. As I was saying, these infections are not common at all. But as I was saying again, you only need one to spoil the fun for you. So it's just a precaution. Next question from Jennifer. Could you discuss, either a future Q&A, leaf tip dieback? What causes it? Are there types more prone to it? Does it look different in Oncidiums versus Cattleya? What does it look like in general? And how to tell the difference between dieback and maybe bacterial or fungal infection on the leaves? Right, so I'll give you a bit of a resume now, because this is a topic that deserves a video. I don't remember if I did one. I think I did. I'll put it in the description, but I think it's old. I think it's worth expanding on it, because if it's old, maybe it's not complete. Maybe I learned more stuff in the meantime. So leaf tip dieback, for me, usually happens when the orchid is getting dehydrated. And it happens a lot on orchids that need more water, or are not as heat tolerant, such as Oncidiums. On Oncidiums, it happens pretty much all the time, no matter what I do. On Cattleyas, almost not at all. On Phalaenopsis, almost not at all. There is a difference between a physical damage or a physical damage that gets infected, and just leaf tip dieback. And that is if the infected area, if the dark area advances. If it advances, you need to cut it. If it doesn't, it's just some leaf tip dieback. So my experience relies more with the dehydration aspect of things, but you can have these leaf tip diebacks if you have an excess of nutrients. I don't think I experienced it, because I'm pretty careful with my feeding, and it's not consistent, you know. It's just consistent on the cooler growing orchids or the less tolerant to drought. But I think there is an article on the AOS that talks about it. I will link to it down below. So this is just the resume. I think I should do a proper video on it. Let me know if you would like that, because I'm gonna do it. By the time that I upload this video, I might have already done it. Okay. Next question from Plant Lady. I'll do a resume of the comment. So my viewer is asking about light meters. They are using a light meter for their houseplants, and they're wondering if I ever use the light meter, and what are the measurements that are okay for orchids in foot candles. I would love to know if you use one at all, and if so, what light measurements you use for your orchids. Right, I used to have one many years ago when I moved to Cyprus, because I thought, you know, starting to use more and more artificial light, I would use one. And what I discovered was that something doesn't add up. I don't know how to tell you this, but you know that some articles, and especially AOS articles, recommend you to have 800 to 1000 foot candles, something like that, for each type of orchid. The thing was, either I didn't have a good light meter, although, you know, it wasn't cheap. Either I had a bad light meter, either it doesn't really matter all that much, either artificial light does not compare with sunlight. I don't know what happened, but when I was measuring my light, especially like in the middle of the shelf, I was getting 300, 400 foot candles. Theoretically, I should not be having orchids grow and bloom and thrive in this light intensity, but I did. So the more I started to measure, and I was getting like big measurements up top, but not all orchids reach top, and most of them actually don't, because I tried to keep a reasonable distance. The more I went down, the more drastically the light intensity decreased. So I think I talked about this many years ago in a video. I stopped using the light meter because it was very, very, very confusing, and I started using my eyeballs. Pretty much. I look and if I think that looks enough, that's enough. I don't know. It's a trial and error, or it's an intuitive thing at this point. I try to, I don't know, just look at a plant, and if it's well lit, then it has enough light. And it worked out. But if I put a light meter in there, it's gonna show me 500 foot candles. I shouldn't get cattleya blooms, but I do. So I don't know what to say about light meters. Maybe I'm not the right person to talk about it. For me, it works without. For me, it works judging by just, how I see my orchid. I imagine that, the light that hits my orchid is the sun. Is it enough? Does it look like my orchids are lit enough? Can I see them properly? Does the light hit as many leaves as possible? If yes, then that's good. And it kind of works out. So, yeah, not scientific at all. Not very good of an explanation. I know, I understand, but I don't know how to explain it otherwise. I don't rely on light meters because they were just very confusing for me. Right. And the last comment that I wanted to address, it's a question from Natalie. Can you post a photo of your grandma's garden? I do not have one. We grew up poor and we didn't have a camera. I remember a lot of time ago, my dad had a very, very old camera and he was like developing the photos and stuff. And at some point it stopped working. And, there was the era of the either Polaroids or digital cameras, the beginnings and stuff. They were so expensive. There were also those cameras you would take in vacation with you that, still used film. We didn't own any of those. The photos that I used to have, I don't know if I still have, were taken by other people. And I actually don't have a photo of the yard. I just have, and I actually have a photo from Google Earth as well, but it's just like the fence. And it's a photo that I keep dearly because I think it's the last remaining photo of my grandma from Google Earth. It's sad. I do not have photos of my yard, of my grandmother's yard. Everything is in my mind. We didn't have. So, yeah, I wish I could show you. I wish I had photos because I really want to recreate many of the things that I can in this climate. But everything is in my mind. And I'm like, sometimes I think about it so hard. I try to think of all of these details just so I don't forget them. Because if I don't think about them, I will forget them. So I tried, I'm getting a little emotional. I wish I had a photo, but I don't. I wanted to tell you about this because if I had a picture, I would have shown it to you guys. Absolutely, but I don't have a picture. I just have remember the pictures that I have are just with the fence, the street itself. I have a few that are in winter as well, so you don't see it, and it's just on the street, playing in the snow. Some photos, some black and white photos that I have from when I was young, that my dad took and developed, they don't show the yard. It's just me as a kid, very weird eating bread. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, enough about that. Sorry, I don't have a picture to show you, but trust me when I tell you it was beautiful. And don't imagine beautiful like YouTube beautiful and everything you see. It was probably a modest garden, but to me it was beautiful. Oh, right, well, that got a little bit emotional towards the end there. I'm sorry, I get always emotional when I talk about my grandma's garden and stuff. That's my safe space. I still dream about it, and my best dreams are there. So, yeah, I don't think I can recreate it, because some of the plants we had, they don't grow here. But, yeah, I really, really, really like the idea of bringing parts of my best parts of my past into my present. And I love my garden so much now. I love all of the critters, all of the insects, all of the butterflies. I got a new tattoo, by the way. Butterflies, of course. Yeah, just because when I was little, I would love observing all of the critters and all of the butterflies and all of those things, and just I feel complete when I'm close to nature, pretty much. I've always felt that. So yeah, maybe I don't need a picture of my garden because it's in my mind, and I will try as much as possible to recreate parts of it here, and I will show them to you. Right, so with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry I got a little emotional there, but I hope you've enjoyed today's Q&A, and hope you have a great day, a great weekend, depends when I'm posting this. Thank you so much rePotme for sponsoring yet another video, and with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.